Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about all of this week's Disney Plus originals. We're going to be talking about Cruella, Bad Batch, Big Shot, Launchpad. We're also going to be doing a little bit of a dive into what's currently going on with the streaming kind of wars with Discovery, AGM, and all the bits and pieces of what's going on. AGM, MGM, and a few other little bits and pieces as well. But before we get into any of that, quick bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you are subscribed on the YouTube channel, and also you can subscribe on the audio platforms. Just a quick note as well, if you are an audio listener, be sure to go look for the What's on Disney Plus club review feed as well, which is where I've moved all of the retro reviews, kind of split them off into two separate podcasts. This week's episode will be 4, and then we've got a few 4 ones coming up, and then we've got some Monsters Inc. ahead of the new show. So that's going to be kind of the lineup for the next few weeks. So definitely go check that one out on its new audio feed. Also a big thank you to our supporters on Patreon and YouTube channel members. So big thank you to Charlie and Sarah for being at the Platinum range. Thank you very much for all of your support. It does make a big difference. Also big shout out to Andrew, Jacob, Caleb, Red Marsman, Andrew, Cody, Darren, the Juice, Lauren, and James. And while over on YouTube channel members, big hello and thank you to Bad Dog Gaming, Amit, Ray, my VCR still works, Bina, Joshua, Adam, Dawn, Martin, Jeremy, and Sarah. Again, a huge thank you for all of your support. You can become a member from as little as $2 a month. You get early access to our retro reviews. You also get to take part in our weekly Q&A. So this week there isn't one because me and my wife are going out for a meal, and it's my birthday, so I'm having a day off. So there we go. And so with that as well, you also help support the channel, helping towards paying for all the fees, all the hosting fees and bits and pieces. But yeah, let's jump into it. Right. Okay. So let's do a quick bit of news, because there's a few little things I just want to slightly bring up that have come up this week. So first off, we now know that Moon Knight is going to be played by Oscar Isaac. The worst kept secret in Marvel was officially confirmed on social media. Not really much more to say. It's just official now. We know if it's finally been done.
I wouldn't say it was the worst kept secret, but it's definitely on the list. I mean, we've known about this one for a while.
Yes, so that one was there. We've also had this past week it was revealed that we're going to be getting a new Black Panther spin-off series. So this one is going to be a starring, and this it's going to be starring Ayote. I think
the one from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
No, that is Io.
There we go.
This is the other one. This is she was in obviously all the Black Panther movies. So it's going to be like an origin spin-off. Now I don't know if this is going to be part of Kingdom of Wakanda, which they're saying it could be separate. It could be a couple of different series going on. But I would very much at the minute kind of thinking it could easily be that series as well. But yeah, so there's another potential Black Panther spin-off. That's going to be pretty cool. And another little bit of news also, Bob Chapek held a special Q&A session this week with JP Morgan, and a lot of the stuff he was repeating was the same as what we've heard at the previous event. But one thing he did let out was that in 2021 they're planning on closing 100 television channels around the world. Didn't say where, just said they're closing 100 channels. They've already closed 30. For example, like here in the UK, we've already lost Disney Channel, Disney Junior, Disney XD, and we've also next month we're losing the Fox Channel, so that we're getting a lot more content dropping onto Disney Plus. There's going to be like 18 channels closing in Southeast Asia later this year that are Disney and Fox. But 100 more channels, they are really go internationally. They seem to have made their mind up on what they're doing. It's just the US that they kind of go, no, we're going to keep you. But the rest of the world, we're all going all in on Disney Plus.
And I'd have to assume that this is backed by numbers. They wouldn't be keeping the number of channels alive on the US market if there wasn't an audience for it. So for whatever reason, people are still watching the various Disney and Fox channels in America, and they're not everywhere else.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the channels that are closing, they're going to be ones in countries that Disney Plus probably hasn't launched in yet. Because there's still a load of countries they've not launched in. They're going all in on. They know where it's going. They can see where it's happening. The US, they still seem to be much slower, but if they're still making money from it, that's different. But I suppose internationally, it makes sense just to go all in. it's where they can really make a massive dent in terms of those streaming numbers, of how much many more subscribers they can get. I mean, it's kind of in some way. I mean, I just wish that they could sort, if they're going to keep closing down more of the channels, they need to come up with a better strategy for releasing content than they have been, because at the minute it's so haphazard with how we're getting content. It's like Disney Channel stuff, Fox chat shows, all these kind of things. I would try and get them on. If they can do a simultaneous release for Disney Plus originals, they can't turn around and say, "Well, we can't do it for the other channels." Well, you can do. You're choosing not to. I mean, we don't have those channels. We've got no other way of watching it. So when they turn around, a new show starts on Disney Channel, why is the rest of the world not getting it on Disney Plus at the same time, or Big Sky, or any of the other shows that are launching? As more channels close down, hopefully they start working out a much more better way of releasing all of this content more simultaneous. And also, there's just the same in every country. I mean, it's like, makes no sense why Australia has been getting Aretha in May, but the UK is getting it in June. It's little things like this. And like Grownish is like 8-9 weeks ahead in Australia than it is in the UK on Disney Plus. Every week we're getting new episodes, but we're like 2 months behind. It's just little things like that which are like, very, very strange, considering the Disney Plus originals, we get the same episode everywhere.
Yeah, I'm hoping that once they catch up on all these shows that they're kind of backdooring into Star in the various countries. I hope once they all get caught up, that they'll just become simultaneous. And also, as we have asked for repeatedly, once it airs on television, put it on Disney Plus.
Yes.
I mean, it's okay. Wait till Friday, even if it's like a Monday airing show, but get it on there quickly, especially for countries that no longer have a Disney Channel.
Yeah, I mean, like say Sydney to the Max again, all the first 8 episodes. Well, why not release them weekly? And then also, it feels like they're missing out on the opportunity to boost up the Disney Plus lineup every month, every week. If it's like, oh, there's new episodes of Amphibia and Muppet Babies, and there could be 6 or 8 like Disney Channel shows dropping in there weekly. I mean, it just feels like a lost opportunity, but hopefully they get it. But as more channels close, I'm hoping we find out more about all of this as we move on. So that was there was a thing kind of like Premier Access is kind of something that they're still going to be playing around with for a while. They did actually release a video this week explaining how it worked, which I always thought was that you have to release a video telling us how it worked, but then there are some people that still can't quite grasp that it's what it is. People go, "Was it a subscription? If I pay, do I get everything on Premium Access?" No, it's not. It's not it's not a subscription. Not a subscription add-on. But ultimately, it's going to depend on the numbers. I mean, it looks like Cruella on the Thursday night opening took 1.5 million predicted, and then like the Quiet Place at like 4 million, so completely destroyed it out the water. But then there's a lot of how many people watched it at home, and we're not going to find out those numbers, I don't think, until Disney decide that it's doing well enough to tell everybody. That's when we'll find out the numbers. But we've still got we got Cruella, and then we're going to have Black Widow, and then we're going to have Jungle Cruise all on Premier Access this summer. I personally, I could see Premier Access sticking around. I know they've changed it for Shang-Chi, but if the numbers are good enough, they will carry on doing it. And I think that's the key thing.
I suspect that Jungle Cruise, being the last one on the list that we know about at this point, will be the deciding factor. How do the numbers on Premier Access compare to the numbers in the theater, especially since around the time it comes out, theaters should maybe be back to some semblance of normalcy, but
I
who
know
knows?
I know in the cinemas they have removed, in some of them in the US, they are announced yesterday they're removing the mask mandate in a number of areas, which obviously a big part of going to the cinema is not having a mask on for it. Here in the UK, that's still happening. We're supposed to be unlocking in a few weeks' time, but we've got a variant that's like raging at the minute, so it's looking a bit doubtful. I know countries are going back into lockdown because numbers are flying back up. And Melbourne's gone back into lockdown. I think Malaysia's gone back down into lockdown. There's stuff going on, and this problem isn't gone away. As I know, like everyone's racing forward, but things are still happening globally. That while at the minute everything's going great with the vaccine program, we both sit here both double vaccinated. We're good to go. There is still going to be there's still going to be some bumps in the road, and I think Disney are kind of planning for that. I think in some way, whereas HBO Max made that big thing where everything's going day and date, and everyone keeps pointing to that every time Disney does Premier Access, in some ways Disney's been a little bit more cautious with keeping its options open for everything.
And it's hard to compare them because the companies are in different situations, and
Yes.
And the movies that they're putting on there are at different levels too. So it's hard to compare. Like, I wouldn't have put Cruella. I didn't expect Cruella to be a Premier Access, but like before that, they were the top tier movies. They were the ones that Disney had to make money on. Whereas in a lot of cases, the HBO Max ones are like, well, we re-released the Justice League Snyder Cut. We hit some other movies that, we would have made some money at the theater, but not quite at the same level that Disney was expecting. Still, I would have liked to have seen Godzilla versus King Kong in theaters, honestly. That seems like one of the ones that really would benefit from the huge screen.
I think we're going to see, it's going to be interesting to see how the numbers work out, because obviously, children aren't vaccinated yet, and there's that whole issue of like, is that the main reason? Like, Disney's movies are primarily family-based, so families are going to be more likely to stay away, because ultimately, that could be an issue. It's going to be very tricky. It's also going to be interesting to watch. I mean, we know with Disney Plus Premier Access that movies arrive on Disney Plus about 90 days or so, 3 months after they've been released. How's it going to work with Shang-Chi with this 45-day window? Are we going to be getting it at 45 days? Are we still going to be getting it 90 days afterwards? Because that to me would make more sense. Maybe they're going to it goes to Premier Access after the 45 days about a cheaper price. That could be a way they do it. Maybe $15.99 or something like that for Shang-Chi 45 days after it's been released. Maybe that's an alternative. I'm not expecting Shang-Chi on Disney Plus 45 days after it's been released.
Not without an additional cost, anyway. That would be a very fast window for what will be probably a pretty major movie at the end of this year. But we've been wrong before.
It's all changing. It's all changing. So speaking of changes, big changes within the whole movie world. And this past week, it was announced that Amazon has purchased MGM. Now that is, they paid like $8.something billion for it. Obviously has to go through legal things. I can't see why that isn't going to work, because essentially there is competition. So it's not like they're the only ones in town. So they get access to a lot of different franchises: Bond, the Pink Panther, Rocky, Creed, a whole host of different things. The interesting thing, everyone keeps touting this 4,000 movies that they get access to. We want to have access to the ones, I think, like pre-1989 or something. There's though MGM still owns the contracts to actually who owns the actual characters. But other than that, this is a big move. It's going to continue to push Amazon. It does have some other issues. Will they end up closing down Epix, which is MGM's streaming service, which I think like 20th Century Studios make a couple of TV shows for them. We know, will that close down? Also, things like Handmaid's Tale was made by MGM for Hulu. That's why we don't see it internationally. So things like that could end up becoming essentially Amazon exclusives. But it's just another big twist, and just keeps pushing the idea of the big boys are just going to keep having to get bigger.
Yeah, it's not exactly a great scenario, and I say that recognizing that Disney is one of the biggest boys, and they continue to grow. It does kind of create like a lack of vision, lack of competition within the market, but we'll see what happens.
I disagree with the fact of it being competition, because now you're going to have competition between Disney, Comcast, Warner, MGM, Sony, or not Sony, but Apple. So you're going to have competition. It's just now that the names that are doing the competition are shifting. Where the movies, the franchises we all knew before are all just merging together and becoming bigger. Ultimately, they're never going to be able to fully merge. There's going to be, we always had like 5 or 6 studios. There will be that. It's just instead of what we assume they used to be, now it's going to be basically Apple, Disney, Netflix. Basically the tech giants are kind of taking over as being the new studios.
Yeah, I wouldn't say much shifting so much as consolidating as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it's true that they've always been like the top 3, the top 5 big studios, and then they have little studios like Touchstone and so forth beneath them. But it does feel like there's less now.
Yeah.
But we'll see how this goes. Will MGM cease to exist as its own brand, or will it be folded in? I know what the initial setup will be. The initial setup's not the question.
No, I think as well as I can't help but feel like, the idea of putting Amazon Studios, I mean, they'll just probably just put their names into it. But also last week it was revealed that Time Warner has, well, basically AT&T have sold WarnerMedia to Discovery. So it's kind of going to be this like weird thing now. Essentially, HBO Max and Discovery Plus now are going to have the option to essentially become one big company. They're all going to be running separately from AT&T. And yeah, they basically brought it a couple of years ago from Time Warner, and they've really struggled to kind of, they just don't know what they're doing, because they're a communications company and they don't seem to have grasped how to run. I mean, they completely just run their home movie department into the ground. DC's been struggling, so they're all going to be merging into a new company. There's also, I mean, the amount of companies and stuff that are involved in this. I mean, some of the brands that are going to be involved with this new WarnerMedia Discovery, we've got the Food Network, HGTV, Warner Brothers, HBO, CNN, Cinemax, DC, TNT, TBS, Eurosport, TLC, Animal Planet, Cartoon Network. Really kind of bringing in, I think that adding in Discovery content into HBO Max is going to be a massive boost for them. So that's going to be more competition, more content. I mean, I think their branding is a lot less clear as it is with Disney. I think I mean, like TBS and TNT. I mean, is that really a brand? It's just a TV channel. They don't, to me, I think of TNT as just classic movies. So is that really a brand? I don't know.
I mean, it used to be. There used to be a lot of original content on TNT. Admittedly, I haven't watched live TV in quite some time, so I don't know what their current roster looks like. But I remember watching them for new programming back in the day. Not that long ago, right?
Yeah, well, I'm a bit like that. We used to have TNT over here in the UK. Like, the only reason I used to watch it was for WCW. I mean, they've been out of business for 20 years. So that's just how long that's been.
To be fair, the last time I watched TNT content was probably about 20 years ago. So yeah.
So that's all happening. So there's going to be a lot more shifting. There's also a lot of discussion of is Comcast going to buy out and buy it, because essentially it's 70 odd percent of the shareholders are separate to AT&T. They don't have, there's no merger with AT&T because they've already split out. So there's a lot of talk of whether or not NBC and WarnerMedia will then merge, or even Viacom. They're expecting some more shifting. Lionsgate right now is look like a prime example of another company that's going to get soaked up by either Amazon, or somebody's going to snap them up, because I mean, they've got Stars. I mean, we've been saying this for a while. There's too many streaming services, and all these small little streaming services are going to struggle in this big world of where they're not going to be able to buy movies. They're not going to be able to buy movies. They aren't going to be able to compete on the same level, and there's content's going to dry up. So all these little things like Stars Plays and Epics and all those kind of little ones, they're all going to start getting sucked up. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I do feel there's too many. I mean, when you look on Amazon right now and you see all these different subscription options within Amazon, it's like, why are you paying £5 for this? You get, it's literally a whole streaming service based on one TV series.
Star Trek. What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Paramount Plus is, it's still at least like, they are expanding a lot. They are, they're doing something a little bit more.
Paramount Plus, from what I've seen so far, is a much better deal than CBS All Access was. But having said that, I was just expressing concern at all the big companies merging together. I will say that merging all the streaming into just a few choices is good. It's really annoying to have to go to something like justwatch.com or something to be like, all right, do I have access to this? Where is it? How do I find it? Oh, it's on this obscure service, so it's like on Crackle or something. And like,
I'll be honest, it's extremely useful for me, because I was just constantly just trying to find out where everything is in every country, because it's so complicated. But I do think we're going to see And to me, all this does is it just keeps saying to me what Disney have done with Star is right. And then I'm looking at what they're doing with Star Plus in Latin America and what they're trying to do with Hulu. It's just like, this isn't going to work. It's just making Hulu and Disney Plus even more likely to merge at some point. Because as far as I'm concerned, Disney are going this streaming bundle. It's like, it's not going to work when all your competition are all going in on more content. I still think in 2 years time, until Comcast has brought out their share by Disney, we're going to end up seeing a Disney Plus with an ad and an ad-free version with all the, we're going to see what they're basically doing with HBO Max and Peacock and Paramount Plus, because they're all doing that. I just feel like these big moves are going to force Disney to have to make a change to Hulu.
They have to eventually. I think it's more an issue of them being able to make the change at the moment. As you mentioned, Comcast has a stake in it still. But the market is fragmented enough. They don't need to fragment themselves even further with Hulu and ESPN and Disney Plus. Get it all under one.
Well, it's not only that, but as you actually look at, for example, Hulu's networks, because if you look at what they've got on their service, they've got a lot of content from these other networks, and that's all going to dry up. I mean, we know that NBC's content is going to be leaving Hulu at some point, but I mean, you look here at the networks that they're on, the A&E. Well, that's kind of been linked in. I mean, Disney own a bit of it. Adult Swim, HBO. BBC, we got BritBox. CBS, well, that's going to be on Paramount. We've got Cinemax, well, that's on, Warner. We've got Comedy Central, which is Viacom. Discovery, Epix, Food Network, Fox, Fuse, and then you got FX, and then you got History Channel and HG. These channels are going to disappear. This content is all going to start disappearing from Hulu, and I just do not feel in my heart that ABC, FX, and Freeform and 20th Century is strong enough to support Hulu. I know they're revving up production, but I just do not see how they're going to be able to continue that. At the minute, they're fine because they've got all this extra content that's sort of spreading it out, but they're going to be losing this stuff one by one. As Discovery isn't going to want their stuff on there, and it's all moving.
There is some legacy content on there that is pretty strong. Things like Family Guy, Futurama, which would make more sense over on Disney Plus in the first place. But
they're massive hits over here on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, they're in the most watched, the trending bar. That's what I was looking for. And they're still very popular over here. There's another number of other shows that are very popular, but you do still need the new content coming in, and that will start to trickle off. Especially, I think they're going to lose Handmaid's Tale at some point, and that's, as far as I know, that's one of the biggest ones they have going for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you're going to see some consolidation, and the trouble is with Hulu is it is making money with the advertising, and they keep sort of going on about the advertising of how well it's doing, because obviously they're trying to boost it up. But I can't help but feel like when I saw like Time Warner merging with Discovery, and then now we're seeing Amazon is like going. And then we've seen what's happening with Peacock, and then we're seeing what's happening with Paramount Plus. And again, Disney's streaming service is completely out of whack, this whole streaming bundle. But again, they can't do anything until they buy out Comcast's share. And because it's just like what they're announcing for Hulu, it's just a load of third-party content they're buying in. There's nothing really much coming in. I mean, we've got like Love Victor, and we've got like, there's a few shows coming in, but you can't help but feel like these are older projects that are coming in. There's a lot of, every time they announce a new movie, I'm looking at it going, well, this isn't even a Disney made. It's been brought in. Like, why are they keep buying? It feels like they're just plugging the gap with licensed content because they actually don't want the 20th century stuff on there yet.
I mean, it's not a mess per se, but it's getting there. And if not for the Comcast part of things, we would definitely be hammering on them to get this fixed up, get it all consolidated.
And the thing is, as well, is I know it's like the whole thing. Oh, well, they won't. I live in a country where they've already done it, so therefore it's a lot easier for me to sit there and go, well, you've already done it in like 17 countries. So the idea of them like, oh, we can't put adult stuff on Disney Plus. Well, you have. You've ruined. That's already gone now. So we've. I think that whole thing of going like the pressure on there going, oh, they can't do it. It's like, well, they could do it. They've already proven that they can do it.
Well, and it's not even just internationally. Sure, we don't have things like solar opposites or whatever, but we do have content that you would consider adult in nature. The Right Stuff was a pretty good example of that. Hamilton's another one. There's a lot of documentaries over on the National Geographic side, and even with the regular content that's creeping up there, like the Marvel content is pushing what I would consider some of those boundaries too. Now, obviously, they're not jumping over the line. They're not going to be dropping like Deadpool kind of stuff in there. We're not. MODOK obviously went over to Hulu rather than to Disney Plus, but Falcon and Winter Soldier, even looking Loki a little bit. They're not exactly going, oh, these are kid shows. No, they're teenager shows on up towards adults.
But no, it's a very strange thing, and I think we're going to see much more of this going forward, and with how they organize all of these things. But yeah, so that's all the future. Let's talk now about some of this week's Disney Plus originals. There's a lot of them again. So I'm going to start off first off with Cruella being the big one. I did post my review earlier this week. It's available now on Disney Plus Premier Access. I know you haven't seen it.
No. I haven't seen it. I am considering seeing it at a matinee showing if I can make sure that there aren't that many people. I will not be getting it on Premiere. I don't think it'll be worth the $30 for me to watch by myself.
No, I think this is a key thing. I really enjoyed the movie. It was a lot better than I was expecting. I kind of got to the end and went like, oh, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that. My wife enjoyed it. And there's lots of kind of like a weird thing. They do kind of turn her into, a sympathetic hero of what they do with it. And we're not going to go into any spoilers and stuff because there's a few in there. Definitely stay to the end because there's some end credits which could set up a potential sequel. But generally as a whole, I really enjoyed it. I like the look of Cruella, how she does it, the way she comes across, the sidekicks and everything as well, like that. That's all very interesting with how they did that. And just as a whole, I just really thought it was a great little series, sort of movie. Whether or not it's worth that, I think like if you're a couple and you're looking and you want to stay safe or you just want to be more comfortable, I can see it. If you're on your own, it's just I don't think it's that kind of movie. If you've got a family, I think you're going to watch it loads of times. I think it's definitely worth it. I can't really say enough. I mean, it was a lot better. It was just so much better than I was expecting because everyone was like, "Do we need a Cruella one?" They did turn it around. There's a few. It's a little bit edgy. I mean, the whole way that she does her costumes and stuff, they're all very, very interesting how they do that. And just as a whole, I just thought it's just a really great little movie, and I can't really say that enough. But yeah, it's just. Yeah, it was almost that kind of weird thing of like some of the music in it was fantastic. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy because they're kind of using all the British 60s rock and roll stuff. Just aesthetically, it just looked fantastic. The cast and stuff are great, and it's just a really solid movie. I enjoyed it much more than Maleficent. And it's got the kind of weird thing like I can't really say it's like it's a live action reboot or remake. It's like, well, no, because it's not a remake. It is an original story. But yeah, no, I did enjoy it.
I guess the question I would have, like you mentioned, Maleficent. If you watch that movie, Maleficent, I haven't seen the second one. It really does change the story from the animated movie. Like her motivations are very different. How it plays out is very different. In this case, if you were to watch Cruella and then watch 101 Dalmatians, the original animated, is there a disconnect between that character and the villain?
I think the trouble is if you get to the end of there, you kind of would maybe be looking at Cruella as a potential hero.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
She's actually nearly essentially becomes a Disney princess because she has, and that's kind of, yeah.
That was something I was a bit concerned about from the trailers. Is like they're kind of making it very Harley Quinn-esque from the trailers. I don't know how that translates into the movie.
I think the thing is I think they played up on the fact in the trailers of her crazy antics, but in actual fact, it's like it didn't really feel like that when you're watching it. she's doing it for a reason when she does that stuff to upstage the Baroness. And when she makes her appearance, it's because it's all about grabbing the headlines and grabbing attention. So she's, every time you see her, it is a big effect because she's trying to upstage her and trying to take away. So there's a few times when she looks a bit crazy, and she's definitely crazy. But there's no little nods to the screen. There's no little wink, wink, and I've been playing. Like Harley Quinn kind of does that. Because I said it to my wife, and she was like, "What? What are you on about?" Didn't even register. What that was about. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
but we'll see. I am a little bit concerned about them turning Cruella into even partially heroic, because out of all the Disney villains,
I mean, she's the worst.
She's the one. She's like, her motive is, I want to kill puppies and make a coat out of them. There's no like moral gray area there. There's no even Scar in Lion King. You can kind of go, all right, he feels neglected as the younger brother. He feels like he should have had a birthright. I don't agree with him, but I can at least understand his point of view. Or even Gaston, who's one of the normal bad, he's like pure ego.
And Thanos, I mean, he's at least looking, at just looking at human resources of just going, there's not enough food and water for everyone. And Palpatine, he just wants everyone to get along.
I don't think I'd bring Palpatine into this, especially in light of the sequels. Having said that, Cruella, though, she is the unambiguously evil character. She is the I want to kill dogs for no other reason than to make a coat, and it has to be real dogs I will not tolerate, and that's her motivation. So even making her slightly heroic, I'm kind of like, I'm not so big on that, because if they do a sequel, then they need to get us to the point where we go from slightly heroic to absolutely stark raving insane.
Yeah. It's still a fun movie. I enjoyed it, but it was good. Also this week we had Launchpad. 6 new shorts dropped onto Disney Plus. Very different. What did you think of them?
So I only watched 2 because they were 20 minutes long each, and I didn't really have time to check all of them out. Because unlike some people, I don't have access to them early, so I had to fit them in between everything else that I was watching here on Friday. So I watched, I guess you'd call them the first 2. Dinner is Served and The Princesses one, the ballet. I liked both of them. I thought they were very well done. I would also say the ending for both kind of missed the mark a little bit. Like they were just an abrupt ending to them, but that's part of the format. It's 20 minutes. But they're not like most of the things on here. The closest they are is to the Pixar Spark shorts, which were really kind of pushing some topics, but those were much, much shorter. So they didn't have a chance to explore the subjects. And obviously these are live action rather than animated. But those were the ones that were kind of going in my head, where they were tackling some pretty serious issues, or heavy issues at the very least, and doing it rather well, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are all touching on subjects that are all very difficult. I do think you kind of, it's like you instantly think like, okay, like Spark shorts, but to them they were kind of still very much like you can still watch them and enjoy them, and without, it didn't feel as maybe as forced as these ones are very much along the lines of we have a story that we're going to tell, and they need a little bit longer. You actually picked, I was going to say those ones. There's 2 that have got a little bit more fantasy element. You've got like Growing Fangs, which is a half vampire and a skull. That one's got a bit more special effects, a bit more, you can see that be turned into like a series. That was like probably the most commercial one was Growing Fangs. That was, if I was to say to anyone just to watch one, that would be like, start with Growing Fangs, because that's probably the more fun, and it's kind of got all the tropes and stuff, but she's a half vampire, and all the bits and pieces. So that one's definitely interesting. You then got there's one with a creature that kind of and she kind of treats it like a dog, and it looks a little bit like Stitch, and there's puppetry. That was a lot of fun. She's got the last of the, I can't think of what I can't pronounce the name. That one's that one's pretty. That was a lot of fun. Again, it's just that, but that one's quite short. I think that was only about 6-7 minutes. That one's probably the shortest one of it. There was another one, Let's Be Tigers, which is just about a nanny who loses her mum, and just the kid helps her just process it a bit. You kind of something's going on right through it, and until eventually she tells because she gets upset, and it was just like watching, going, wow, this is just it. Like this is a real problem, a real issue that people have got, and just very nicely done. Just you kind of sitting there going, this is just such a weird little thing. I can't help but feel like this whole project is like, it's just great experience, just lots of practice, gets new writers in, gets people to try, hopefully there's where they can get people in to be camera crew, and everyone on here can just practice making something to then move on to movies, and then move on to, we've seen it with Short Circuit. There's a new short, that one of the shorts that was done for the last Short Circuit, she's then doing a short for the upcoming Enchantico. There's this kind of stepping stone, and I very much look at Launchpad as being exactly that. It is a launch pad. It's there to get somebody new in and get moving. I think this the dinner one, I think in some ways, because of the way it would like subtitles and stuff, that was probably quite a hard one to kind of jump straight into. And I did think the Little Prince or Little Princesses, I really enjoyed that one. I thought that one was extremely well done. I know it was easily the most popular of the trailers that went up for them, because they all dropped around the same time. That one definitely seemed to catch people's more attention, and I just thought that was handled very well. Just like, he's Gabriel's feminine, and the parents are just letting him whatever he enjoys, he's allowed to do. And there's and it's kind of weird thinking, like, he's a little kid. There's no sexuality stuff. This is just him allowed to do what he wants to do. He is feminine, and the parents are just like, yeah, you do what you want. If you like pink, you wear pink. And I just thought that was such a well done way of doing it. And the father's way of looking at it was such a again, it's just an old-fashioned way of looking at it, going, you can't be like that and afraid for us. I just thought that one was probably my favorite out of them. I thought that one was done very well.
Yeah, I thought the ending for that one was a little too easy. Like, the two fathers talk, the one who's just like, whatever, I want my kid to be happy, and the other one like, no, I want my kid to be a man. And they had that talk, and the very masculine man guy was like, just, oh, okay, well, now I'm apparently entirely okay with this, and I don't see that happening in most of these cases, but it's also restricted to the 20-minute. If it had been like over the course of a movie length or a television show, obviously you would have seen the attitude slowly change to eventually get there, rather than this, oh, well, you have turned me with this impassioned speech that you had.
I think also just the fact that maybe the dad just standing up for his son just kind of threw that off, just like, and again they're in a short thing, but I thought that worked very well. It was definitely just great to see these stories being told on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and I wouldn't take my complaint about the last 3 minutes of this to say, because I thought it was a very, very good short. The other one I saw, Dinner Is Served, was very good. Again, the ending was a little bit of, actually that one was a little bit weirder, where it's just like, I'm just going to go up to the podium and sing now, and it's like, I get what you're going for, but it didn't. They didn't establish that the singing was important to him early enough, because like he even brushed off the karaoke earlier on, and you're like, but for the most part, the buildup is really good, and then the reveal that they're only going to give him this position so that they can look like they're woke or whatever worked really well.
Yeah, I thought that was a very good reveal, but it was the ending of the singing was like, he would have just been better just to like walked out, or I don't know, just singing. I don't know, it just seemed a bit odd with that one. But I think the build up to the actual reveal, that basically the principal just wants them there because it will sell more, sell the school to foreign sort of parents and stuff. Which again is that kind of thing. Like I thought that's a really smart story, because along the lines of how diversity can also be people do this for money as well. There's money in it, and I thought that was a very well made point. So there was just some really interesting stories with all these. There was 6 of them. Definitely worth checking out. But take your time. Don't binge watch them all, because I think they're a bit heavy for that. They're a bit heavier than what we normally get. So
Well,
I do think, yeah, they're a lot more heavier than I was expecting.
these would definitely fall under that heading that we were talking about earlier, where the content is slightly moving in a more mature direction.
Mm.
Obviously, there's nothing in these that I'd be worried about kids watching. I mean, these aren't. Maybe the Fangs one. I don't know.
No, because even that's not really. That's kind of like zombies territory. It's more mental, because I think kids, a lot of it will go over their heads, because it's about how they say stuff and what they do it. But a great little collection. We are going to have season 2 next year. They're currently, if you are interested in becoming a filmmaker, the applications are now open. So if you head over to Launchpad's official website, you can put in your application. I did get to speak with the people in charge of season 1 and season 2. You'll find the video up on the YouTube channel. And in about 2 weeks, I've got an interview with the director and the writer of Growing Fangs as well. So you'll find that one coming up in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, so that one was pretty cool. Let's jump now into some of the other Disney Plus originals. Let's talk now the finale of the Mighty Ducks Game Changers, which saw, again, let's do some story at super speed. Well, what did you think of this one?
It was okay. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I did like the idea of, no, they lost the tournament, but then they still get it was better than them just winning the tournament.
Yeah.
But it then got really hokey and kooky, and now we know why it's called the Mighty Ducks, when the Mighty Ducks weren't actually the heroes of the show, and well, now they are. I thought it was cool they wore the old jerseys, but like this whole like, well, we're going to play you for the Ducks, and if we lose, then we have to disband or something. It was it's a bit much.
To be honest, the thing is as well, and this has been my argument of the whole thing, of why did they were rushing through it. Like the whole name thing, that could have been the whole of season 2. That could have been the whole story arc of, Bombay wanting the name back. And literally, it's thrown away in seconds. And then it's like, okay, so they pull out and they lost the tournament. That should have been the end of the series. That should have been it. That should have been the end of the thing of the team chose the health over, and leave it on the good note. Maybe they do something. I don't know, but then they did the whole thing with the name change. I'm like, oh, really? You're rushing again. It's just rushing through these storylines to try to. Okay, so now they're the Mighty Ducks. Okay, we hadn't had any foretelling to this in the slightest. No build up, no anticipation, no chance to even so their entire team is at risk with no build up at all. I don't know. That was my one problem with it. It's very predictable. It was a fine episode. I thought it wrapped up the series nicely. I kind of feel like, in all honesty, that do they need to come back for another series? They kind of done everything. They rushed through. It does feel just like they've done it now. What else can they do?
I mean, I'm sure they can find something to do if the series is popular enough. They'll go to Worlds or something. That's what they did for the sequel to the movie. So, yeah, the whole series, not just this episode, but this whole series felt like they didn't know the story they wanted to tell with this, and they didn't know what the theme was, because on paper the theme is simple. Sports, especially for kids, should be fun, and competitiveness is not fun. So we can quibble over how accurate that is as a statement, but that's like on paper the motive for the series. But even at the end of it, you're like, okay, so they don't really care. They're there to have fun, but they win the whole thing. And it's so, which one are you going for? And especially since they were very clear at the beginning of the series, the Ducks dominate. They are like the kings. They destroy everything they come across. There is no chance of anyone else winning. And then at the end, like, actually, that wasn't very hard.
This is, I mean, like, if I had to put it into sports terms, for me with like wrestling, it felt a little bit along the lines of, they never established the Mighty Ducks as the heel, the bad guys, and dominance. They needed to destroy the Ducks. They needed to destroy the Don't Bothers to make them the underdogs to come back to beat them. And I feel like they didn't establish that enough. And also, the Don't Bothers went from not being able to skate to then being able to beat the best team for the name.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Why on earth would the coach give up the name? He wouldn't have the off. And I mean, I know they kind of joke, he doesn't have the off, but we're going to do it anyway. It's like, no, you wouldn't. The lawyer would be the first one in there to go, no.
Well, the lawyer and the woman had the bonding experience the previous, so sure, whatever. But that is what I meant, though, where like the Ducks were supposed to be the dominating team, and then the fight against them really wasn't that hard. It's like I'll use a different one, going into an old school RPG where like all the mini bosses are super, super hard and you have to really fight really hard. And then the main boss you hit in like 2 whacks and it's like, wait, hold on. What was that? I just destroyed you. You're supposed to be the big bad. I guess most recently, like Breath of the Wild Calamity Ganon apparently is just like a joke. But
but it depends on it. The thing is with that one is you have to defeat the 4 sub bosses. If you just go straight into the main, you're going to go straight in and face the main boss, but you'll struggle. I mean, speedrunners can do it, but yeah, you power up as you're going through it. And the Don't Bothers never powered up.
Yeah,
I mean,
it seemed
they basically, and then like, we're going to do every character's single trick that they've done is now going to come into play to let them win. And then they even did the V. And I just got to the end and went, well, I'm glad that's over. It was just really bad. It was a fine show. But it was so average. It just generally was just like, they could have done so much better than this. It just felt rushed. They speeded through it. The name change, I would have loved that to have been they needed a story arc to go from right through a season and to carry stuff through. And I feel like they did have one, but they just speeded through it. You know, like you said, did they know they weren't going to get a second season? Did they have to cut the episodes down? Either way you look at it, the name thing should have been a whole multi-episode arc, and they rushed it through in 5 minutes.
So I'm going to be a little bit generous here and assume that COVID had something to play with this. We don't know how COVID screwed with their schedule too much. We know it delayed it in the beginning, but we don't know how much it changed. Did it prevent them from doing reshoots? So
the only thing I could think of was they had to change the tournament because they couldn't have the fans there, so therefore they did it in a small arena. They had to move it to the small arena so they didn't have the fans in. You know, like they did with Big Shot. Like they shifted from the games because they can't have the audience to be filmed. So that to get them out of beating them in the big arena where there would have been people, that might have been the only thing I can think of that they needed to do.
Now, I think that actually probably was originally part of it, because them winning the tournament and doing the name change wouldn't have made sense. But having this secondary challenge actually does make narrative sense to a certain extent with them doing the whole name change and whatnot. Also, yes, there are visible consequences to COVID, especially on a lot of the TV shows you see right now. Like almost all the shows that are airing right now have no extras at all. They're just not there. That's the obvious stuff, but there's a lot of stuff going on behind the camera with the writers and what's available and locations and stuff. So I suspect, though we'll never know for sure, that a lot of the plans really got hampered by COVID, and they had to take stories that possibly would have actually expanded and been properly explored and condensed them into these 5-minute plots just because they could not shoot the scenes they needed. I might be being too generous with that. It's not impacting my rating for it. And I also very much note that even if I am willing to give them that, it doesn't make the series magically better.
No, so. It's to me, it's very average. It started off with great gusto and then just kind of lost it, and that was out to me for that one.
Which would also support the idea of COVID getting in the way. Like they might have had more resources in the beginning, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, we've got to scramble and put together whatever we can. We saw this with the CW shows last year, where they cut off like 2 episodes for whatever shows they're running on, Supergirl and Flash and whatnot, and just crammed the ending of the season of 3 episodes worth into one.
Well, I mean, Blacklist even ended up doing an animated finale
Oh,
because
did it really?
yeah, apparently they couldn't film it, so rather than like leave the whole of the season just stopping on just because of one end, like the last couple of minutes weren't filmed, they just did an animated ending.
That's one way of doing it.
Which is a bit like what was it, Godmothered, It's like,
Oh, that's I'd forgotten about that one. I
but
wish
yeah,
I'd stayed forgotten about that one.
yeah, so that one there. Big Shot. A very different episode this week, and much more grounded, much more about family, much more about the. Again, I enjoyed the fact that this was the episode of Corn wants to get out. Corn's had enough of this. He's ready to move on. He doesn't like being attached. He's getting too attached to everybody. Everyone's becoming friendly with him, and he's scared. He's basically scared of like. And by the signs of it, he was like a military brat, so therefore never really connected with anyone and never made home. So that kind of carried on, and his daughter wants to stay. And I would have liked them to maybe spread this one out a little bit longer and hinted at this a little bit in another episode, because it kind of was done and resolved in one episode. But again, that extra 10-15 minutes stretches that out. And they explain it ABC. There was a cause effect, and an after thing. So it would have been nice to maybe spread that out a little bit longer. But I did, yeah.
See, that would have been is my complaint with that episode as well, is that, yeah, it had the extra space and they do take the care to explain it and give the whole episode to thinking about it. But it's like this sudden like anxiety that Korn is having, that like he's becoming too attached, and all this sudden desire to like, no, we've got to accelerate me moving out of the school and away from all these people, came out of nowhere. It's just like, you could have dropped some hints that he had this in previous episodes. You could have built up to this. It really did feel very abrupt. Now, there are
maybe that was the whole thing. I was going to say that was the only thing of him trying to get into Division 2 was just kind of that might have been the push, but they didn't really sell that story side of things.
Yeah, it I can see an argument for that, but they didn't follow up on it, because that happened in episode 2 or 3 or something like that, maybe a little later. But it hasn't been brought up since. They've mentioned it a couple times. Oh, you wanted to get us to Division 2, or this is going to be your big thing, but there was never any indication that it was I need this so that I can move back to college. This is, it was like, no, this is the objective.
To me, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm sure you want to get into the NBA. You don't want to go to college, like it's like. But obviously, I know college is still a big thing, and we've talked about that in the past. But for internationally, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
It's like, well, you just want to go from a high school to a college, just like no difference to us.
I mean, it's entirely possible that his objective would then be to win a couple of championships in the NCAA and move on to being a professional in the NBA. We don't know. But that aside, I mean, that's the big complaint of the episode. The rest of the episode is pretty solid. You've got the house party going on. You've still got some other teacher stuff going on. I still don't really buy into Korn's romance with the drama teacher, but
the thing is with this one is I do like they kind of have pulled back a little bit on like Holly and Korn's relationship. They've pulled back on the romantic side of things with that one, and just kind of, and I kind of think that's not a bad idea. If they want the show to have legs, you don't want to do the Ross and Rachel thing. Obviously, that being big, you don't want to jump too quickly, because that was, I think, because again they did that with the Mighty Ducks. They kind of teased it and then like completely just abandoned it. And
they got to hug at the end. I mean, that was the big payoff.
Yeah. If you're going to do that story, you need to kind of give it time. And I'm actually glad that they haven't gotten that one there. And he needs essentially somebody to kind of, not necessarily a rebound, but he needs somebody to kind of bring that out of him. And maybe the teacher is. And they also like the fact they introduced Destiny's family as well. Where's that going? What's that whole, with Louise going to the family and like finding, it's like that was a nice scene, but again it was like, well, where's that going? I mean, getting in, I can't think of her name, from The Greatest Showman, that was she's a well-known actress. Hopefully she's in more than, I mean, now we've only got what 3 episodes left. Hopefully we get more of this. Hopefully something gets picked up for a second season at some point. I do feel like it's such an underrated TV series. I really do feel like that with this Big Shot. It kind of got lost in a shuffle, and yeah, I really enjoyed this week's episode. It was actually the first that was the thing. I fired this up before Bad Batch. That was the funny thing for me. I was like, actually, no, I'll watch that one first, which I would never thought I would have ever said. You said that to me, and I was like, no, I actually want to know what happened. Whereas Bad Batch is like, we might as well get onto that one now. But
we'll come to that in a second. Yeah,
it's just kind of, for me, it's just been a really fun episode.
Big Shot.
Yeah,
in this case, yes.
Yeah.
But I also watched Big Shot before Bad Batch. Bad Batch, which actually the last thing that I watched out of all the Disney shows, including the Launchpads that I got to watch anyway. I did enjoy the episode. Obviously, I spent most of this talking about that one annoyance, but I did like the episode. And this is right now the show that I'm most interested each week. Want to see where it's going. And with Mighty Ducks rounding up this past week, I'm hoping that some of the people who maybe were ignoring Big Shot because it wasn't a known property before this will give it a shot.
I mean, next week's it's big, but next week it's kind of got its own. Well, I also now, just in general, with Loki moving away, might just give that a little bit more of a chance to move on. But yeah, definitely check out Big Shot. It's a Bad Batch, a solid episode. I mean, you had a Rancor in it, so I didn't recognize it at first because it wasn't until they said it was a Rancor. It didn't look like a Rancor. It was kind of a bit of a funny thing with that, with them kind of getting a bit basically turning into a pet. But I mean, when you think that this is the Rancor, which is essentially going to be killed by Luke Skywalker, it's like, oh, this cute little Rancor that is gonna just be, like from one of my favorite scenes as from Return of the Jedi. And it is funny, I haven't got it here, but I have actually got the Rancor figure from the 80s, still from when I was a kid, and it's in a cupboard, and I wanted to clean it up and bring it in, and it's just like that creature is so iconic to me because of the toys that I had, and it was just like, oh, I like this, little nods, we Bib Fortuna in there, we had a little bit of mentions of Jabba and like connecting at the dots again. I was just like, oh, this is cool. I like it. Was actually, I think, one of my favorite of the 3 episodes. I like the Friday episodes rather than the first one. I think it was the strongest one we've had so far. I think
it was the strongest one, but it was mostly on the strength of that plot rather than on the Bad Batch themselves, and that's been the problem with the series so far. Like last week, Fennec was the star of the show. This week, the Rancor was the star of the show. And it really does feel like while we're having some fun hopping around and filling in some gaps and fleshing out
other characters,
these other characters, the Bad Batch themselves are just kind of trundling along. Like, did we learn anything about any of these characters that we didn't know in the previous episode? I mean, Tech was still smarmy, and Echo was still not Echo, and okay, so Wrecker punching it out with the Rancor was kind of cute, but we didn't really learn anything about him. And it's just like, okay, this is the Bad Batch, right?
I mean, I think it's definitely more about Omega rescuing them was kind of the key aspect here. I thought this was a solid episode. It was definitely, I like the fact that they established something within the larger Star Wars universe. The characters it was nice just not to see Tech and Omega. I'm sorry, Tech and Echo just hiding behind and fixing something in the corner. They actually were shooting and getting involved a little bit. They weren't quite doing the normal what we've seen them do so far. So that was nice to see them expanding that. And again, Wrecker getting some opportunity to stand out rather than just look a fool. And again, Hunter becoming he is the pack leader. Even everyone just instantly sees him as the leader.
Yeah, but again, we already knew that there wasn't much growth there. Like you said, though, Omega was the one who rescued them, and we got to see Omega, doing her own hunting. which was good. That is important. Especially since she is the new character and she's apparently like the baby Yoda of this series. We need to know a bit about what she's doing. That said, just like if you wanted to do like a history of the Star Wars universe, you could have just done an anthology series. We need a Crosshair episode is actually what we need to do to see what's going on that side. And I think that will be the catalyst that gets us going into the proper plot.
Yeah, I'm actually enjoying the fact of them like leaving that part of it alone for a little bit and just letting them, because essentially they need to establish that they're mercenaries. They need to make some money. They need to do, because ultimately they're on the run, but they're on the run, but they're not really on the run because they haven't done anything to the Empire. They're just a potential threat. They're not on, I know they was set up Crosshair to go track them down, but they've not done anything. They've not actually gone up against the Empire at all about anything. It's not like they're not a rebel. They are literally just trying to get enough money to eat at the minute.
It doesn't seem like it's actually the Empire that's hunting them at the moment. It does seem like it's the cloners, the people trying to get Omega back. Yeah. Although the Empire does have a grudge in that they got away. And of course, even at this stage, the Empire is not going to be happy with somebody defying them. I mean, they're already all in on like, let's go kill Saw Gerrera. It's like, Saw hasn't even, you guys are like 2 months old. And how do you already have like insurgents trying to kill you?
Yeah. So no, again, a good solid episode. I mean, we got to think we still got another 10 weeks of Bad Batch. So we got plenty of time to kind of, I think, extend that one. We also had a new episode of High School Musical, the series. I'm gonna be honest, I watched this one a few weeks ago, so my memory's a little bit fuzzy. Just more great performances, lots more Beauty and the Beast. There's a lot more Beauty and the Beast in this episode. And again, I think there was more college stuff going on with, like Nikki and was it Nick? I can't think of her name. Olivia and also Ricky kind of getting together, and then a little bit of hint as well with and some of the other characters and stuff. And just as a whole, just more fun. It's just a very fun little series. So I'm gonna be looking forward to next week, kind of jumping into some new episodes. Because what they did was they sent out for the initial like kickoff, we all got to see the first 3 episodes, and then they did the same with Mighty Ducks. They did the same with it's kind of the way of getting us and getting into the series. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to jumping into it. But as I said, I know you didn't get to watch it this week.
I did not, and it wasn't intentional. It was just there was so much to watch this week with Launchpad launching. I will check out this particular episode. However, it is the 3rd episode rule for me, where if this one does not grab me and convince me that I need to keep going, it will be the last one. Yes. So that will be my review next week, whether or not I watch episode 4.
Yes. Also in the UK, we got Rebel, which is a new TV series which launched on Star in Australia as well. A solid little show. It's kind of, she's trying to, it's like Erin Brockovich thing. Unfortunately, the series has been cancelled. So I've seen the first episode, and now the problem is for me is now I'm in that same problem I've got with Next, Hellstrom, and Filthy Rich, where it was like they've been cancelled. That's all right, but it instantly just loses down on the when I want to watch it, because I mean I haven't finished those other 4 seasons. Hellstrom I haven't watched for weeks because it feels to me like the second I know it's not going anywhere, it just loses its puff and just like I don't know. It's hard to get. It's like, well, they should have given Rebel a little bit longer than 5 episodes to kind of establish itself. I mean, it's a fun little character. She's a bit over the top in terms of how she does stuff. We also got a new episode of MODOK. It's not as good as the last episode. He's kind of doing the time loop thing and traveling back in time and trying to stop himself from making mistakes with his wife so they don't split up. And also at the same time then realizing he could kill his arch enemy as a baby, and then ends up setting off a time. It's all very, every time loop like cliche in the book kind of was done in this one. Again, it's just stupid, it's bonkers. We also had the finale of Solar Opposite season 2, another absolutely bonkers episode where they all have to try and essentially the pupa's going to kill them at midnight, so they're all trying to live a fulfilled life within 12 hours and do absolutely bonkers things to try and get there. And yeah, that one's finished now, so that one's kind of left the white door wide open for MODOK. But Solar Opposites, totally bonkers, and just a fantastic show. New episode of Grownish here in the UK, which I know we're a little bit behind us, Canada and Australia. Kind of dealing with not really teenage pregnancy, but kind of being pregnant at university and the issues that brings in. So again, some pretty strong stuff, and dealing with who the parents should they put up for adoption and stuff. So some strong themes, very different than again, this is the advantage of Star for us, of having multiple shows all dropping that are all very different, all got different themes and just more variety. On Monday there will be a review up of Aretha, because we'll be getting Aretha 2 episodes a week for next week as well, so something else for us to watch out. So yeah, just packed full of Star goodness as well. This is a shame, as I said, with things like Filthy Rich and Rebel. It's like once it's cancelled, it just kind of loses the impact. There was lots of other additions as well this week, but with all the originals, that's definitely keeping us busy.
And as we move forward and more content is made for streaming rather than for television, this whole idea of shows getting canceled midway will probably kind of drop off.
And I also feel like some of them as well were a bit like, because of the current situation, shows have been, they weren't really given an opportunity to go. And apparently there's going to be a big change in how they're doing pilots and new episodes and short. And there's quite a cool conversation going on in our Facebook group this week of like, someone kind of go, well, why is everything getting shorter seasons? Why are we what happened to 22 episodes for every show? And it's like, and everyone popping in after going, because this is better, because shorter seasons are better than these constant monster of the week 20. And it is funny how American TV shows are so focused on filling the network time, and streaming shows are much more, they're all much shorter seasons. Here in the UK, that's always been a thing. We've always generally had short seasons of 3 to 6 episodes is kind of standard, maybe 7 or 8, something like that. But it depending on the story, whereas especially like with the BBC, they weren't worried about filling out 6 episodes, was kind of like the standard. So for me, I'm used to this kind of thing, but I'm thinking there's a lot and it's not just Disney, but I mean, you look at all the shows, we're looking around about 10 episodes seems to be the standard order at the minute for Disney Plus originals.
Yep. And I know Netflix for a while had like the 13 episode standard. Most of the Marvel series were 13 episodes. I think many of their early efforts, like what was it? The OA.
I mean, like all the Marvel ones were, except for Defenders. And I mean, I think I think 6 for Marvel, 8, they've all got the different ideas. But I do think it helps having short, because Mighty Ducks might have been an advantage of a 22 one, but then it stretches out the story and then you get lost in it. And I can't help but think of how many shows that got, we got to that mid-season point where you would just drop because you're like, oh, I'm fed up with this.
I'm very hard pressed to think of a series where I'm like, I am really glad that had a 22 episode season. I think like the closest I would get to would be like the first or second season of 24, and that's simply because that is the idea of the series. Every episode,
and even they got out, and even they got shorter in the later seasons.
Well, yeah, I think the final season was only 12 episodes, and also even in that first season, as fun as it was, especially when you didn't know what was going to happen, there were definitely episodes where like you're literally just filling time right now.
And he still never went to the toilet or ate.
Or slept or any of those things, or never got stuck in traffic in the middle of Los Angeles. Anybody who has ever driven in Los Angeles knows how completely improbable that is.
I remember I remember because I know when I went to LA, I was like, all right, okay, well, I want to go from, I think it was like, I wanted to go down to Disneyland. I'm thinking, oh, we're going to be on a bus. Well, it's going to be like, well, look at the map and go, well, yeah, it's about 20 minutes away. Then like 2 hours later, what are we doing?
It would have been faster if you'd walked.
Yeah, it is funny, but yeah. So that was all of this week's Disney Plus originals. Let us know what you enjoyed in the comments below. Just again, it's just fun having all this stuff to talk about of like different shows, different movies, and a lot of different choice. Yeah, a lot of things this week, but let us know what you've been enjoying. And again, big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. And also you can find us on all the different audio platforms. And as I said before, if you are an audio listener, make sure you do check out for the What's on Disney Plus Club Review, which is our retro reviews. Because we've got a few more coming up in the coming weeks ahead. And then kind of in July, we'll kind of be back with some fresh, a slightly different take on how we're doing it. But generally, we'll have different movie reviews and stuff on there. And on that, guys, thank you very much, and we shall see you guys soon. Laters.